I spoke in a previous film about responsibility, and I realised that what I was really doing was kind of blaming the press, albeit in a bit of a underhanded way. So I wanted to talk about responsibility with regards to the unrest in London, because I've noticed that the media is absolutely jam-packed full of asking the question, who's to blame? And for me, blame is all about avoiding the taking of responsibility, and avoiding responsibility itself. For me, that word is an important word, and I'm exploring its meaning. And to me, it kind of has two meanings. The first is, taking responsibility to me means seeing the part I play in every aspect of my life, in every part of my reality. And I've noticed with the reporting of what's going on in London is the seeming addiction to finding out who's to blame so that we can point fingers at them. So I wanted to do this video and invite people to respond to this video, as you'll see in a minute, to start to take responsibilities, to start to become aware of what it is that I do to contribute to this situation. And that's my first part of the understanding of that word responsibility. The second part, which is related, is to do with my ability to respond, so response ability, as opposed to reacting. So reacting is acting again, reacting. To me, it's what I do. It's what I do on a regular basis. I do the same thing as I've been doing for years. I get triggered and then act again like I did in the old days. Or, if I'm able to respond, then I become responsible. And again, that's related to blame, because blame is an old behaviour. I notice it coming up a lot in my family situation, and it's a behaviour that just leads to more problems. So I'd like to start the ball rolling and say, put my hands up and say, I take responsibility for the riots. I, in other words, choose to notice and declare the part that I played in the London riots. And I'd like to invite anybody else to see if they can take responsibility. And it would be really interesting, wouldn't it, if politicians took responsibility, if the people who worked in the police took responsibility, if the people who were involved in the unrest took responsibility. But someone has to start, so might as well be me. So I take responsibility for the riots because right now I'm recording this on an iPhone. And I've heard that, I don't know whether it's true, but I haven't investigated, but I've heard that there are people in China who work on the assembly line of this phone, which must be an incredibly boring job, and some of them have attempted suicide. And instead of dealing with the boredom created by this work, apparently they've just put some sort of a device, safety net, so that people don't actually die. Now I don't know whether that's true or not, but I haven't investigated it, and on top of everything else, just by purchasing an iPhone, I am illustrating to myself and others that I am still deeply part of the system. And I've purchased many things. I do purchase many things. I live in this society and I purchase lots of things. So I am part of this society because as I purchase things, I'm supporting major corporations who spend millions and billions of pounds and dollars on advertising. Those adverts use subliminal messages and very powerful psychology to mess around with our minds, to make us want to buy the stuff in the first place, and I contribute to that by buying this stuff. Although I try not to buy branded things, but I don't always succeed. So that's one big part I play. And the second part I play is I support this system by paying my taxes. I am confused about this to some extent, or at least I question the whole idea of paying taxes, because I know that some of those taxes go to fund wars which I have very big questions about. Some of that money goes to fund aspects of the legal system which I have many questions about. Some of that money goes to pay back debts which I have questions about. Some of that money goes to bail out banks which I have questions about. Some of that money goes to the NHS, which seems to be far too influenced by pharmaceutical companies, which I have questions about. Some of that money goes to schools, which seem to be, sometimes, not all schools, but some of them seem to be like open prisons, seem to be conditioning and brainwashing our beautiful, amazing, divine children. And I have questions about that. And yet, I'm too frightened to stop paying my taxes and deal with the consequences of that. So there's a couple of aspects of responsibility. Oh, I can think of another one, yes. And I feel responsible for spending very little time on housing estates, finding out what's going on and helping them in some way, perhaps helping them, sharing my experiences, for example, with the police, and sharing with them how I have resolved some of my differences within myself with the police, so that I can now have really good conversations with them on the streets and ask them difficult questions. So how much time have I spent? Very little. So that's at least starting the ball rolling in terms of my part that I play in this part of my reality. So I invite you all to post videos sharing the part that you play, and perhaps we can eventually send these videos out there and see if we can get some people in so-called power to see if they can work out what part they play. Have a great day.